Barbara, you up?
I'm up now.
I can't sleep with this cold. My throat's really sore.
All right, I'll get the Sucrets.
Sucrets?
Sucrets is basic medicine for sore throats. Pain-relieving medicine. Basic medicine that works fast.
System. Every one of Phyllis Shave's 45
$1,000. Today's Kinwin winners are Winifred K. And a Merry Christmas to you all.
Webster is next on BCTV.
Good morning. Later on today's program, I have a very sad report for you. It involves a family in North Vancouver, the Bissell family, and their little boy, who is 4.5 years of age, and who suffered some brain damage after an operation when he was a very small baby. Can't see, can't walk, can't talk. And the question that we're going to raise this morning on the Bissell baby is the family getting the total support it should have from the community? No matter how much things have improved in the last 20 years, have they improved enough in these particular tragic circumstances? That's a heavy one for later in the program. We also have here this morning Lord Parry, who is chairman of the Tourist Board of Wales. I'm not allowed to say the Welsh Tourist Board for some reason I'll find out about later. I've never been in Wales, so we'll go by remote control today. And then I have the man from Dree, one of the two most popular members of the House of Commons. The most disliked is Herb Gray. Alan McEachern and Pierre de Bane, by a poll, are the most popular members among the opposition. He is the man from Dree, not the man from Glad, although he is as handsome as the man from Glad. He is the man from Dree. And we want to know why British Columbia discriminated against in Dree funds. After the break. Since the days of Jean Marchand and before, the ministry known as Dree, Department of Regional and Economic Expansion, has been widely regarded in the West as a means by which to give favors to Eastern Canada, Quebec, Newfoundland, and the Maritimes. It is what is accurately called federally legislated discrimination, and properly used, nobody argues about Dree. With me this morning is a long-time Liberal backbencher from the Gaspé Peninsula, who is now the Minister of Regional Economic Expansion, Pierre de Bane. I'm sure, Mr. de Bane, as you cross the country, that you continually get kicked in the teeth with the accusations, some of them true, that Dree funds, and you have $600 million this year, are used as a form of political payola.
Well, this is most unfair. But what I would agree upon is that it is a widespread feeling in the country, that sentiment. And on the contrary, I think if there is one department which dovetails with the ultimate end of society, that is to create equal opportunities for all the people in this country, it is through such a department. Because if this country is not based on language, is not based on geography, is not based on religion, it can be based only on the common will of all the people to be together. And how to make it that every Canadian, wherever he lives, in whatever part of every province, could feel that he has for himself and his children equal opportunity. Well, that department, this is its whole function, to generate economic activity in those poorer areas, disadvantaged areas.
But surely the move of the country and the people of the country at the moment is from the east to the west.
Definitely.
Would it not be just as well to spend the money in vibrant areas where more jobs will be created than to pour it down the drain in certain parts of eastern Canada? For instance, the Michelin grant, you remember? When all the money went to Michelin, 45 of some $60 million, I think it was, to create jobs in competition with healthy tire plants in Ontario. Was that not a bad grant?
I would respectfully beg to differ. You see, we have in Canada hundreds of programs. Just at the federal level, we have 1,200 programs. And that department has 1% of the budget. And most of the other departments, as you say, do invest in those most dynamic regions of the country. Let's take the Michelin case. The Michelin case, what we have. In 1970, 1% of all the tires sold in Canada, in North America, were radial tires, 1%. And the bias belted tires, 99%. And what we see is that each year it's going up, the radial tires. Now it has reached 40%. In 10 years from now, it will be 99%. So the other one is going down whatever we do. And Michelin, we were faced, as a minister, I was faced with this option. Michelin told me, either you give us a grant and we will locate in Canada, or you don't give us a grant and we will locate in the States.
But we give them 42 or $56 million to a great free enterprise American company.
I'll give you another example. A month ago, I had the following application before me as Minister of DRI. An American company came to me with an application to make an investment in a Western province. I looked to the return on investment. It was obscenely high, 96%. Within 1 year, they were going to get back their investment. But I decided nonetheless to give them the grant, because if I did not, they would have located in an American state.
Was that in BC or Alberta? Do you remember?
Yes, I even know the place. Let's say it was in Manitoba, that case.
Manitoba. Well, mind you, you want the...
And the reason why I give it, because otherwise they would have gone to the States.
Well, let me be quite specific, though.
Yes?
I have information in front of me about 3 panel board plants. One in Timmins, Ontario, which got 1.8 million in October 80, one in Forex-Leroy in Val-d'Or, Quebec, which got 2.5 million in March of this year. And yet when a similar application is made from Smithers, British Columbia, by Northwest Planer Board, they get chopped off, and they're going to employ 30 new people. And they've got 3.6 million or more of their own money into the thing. But when they go for DRI, because it's in BC, no way.
Believe me, this is a false impression. I know it is very widespread in Western Canada.
But are these not facts in this case?
No, and I will explain them to you. First, I must say right away that that case is under review.
Northwest Planer Board?
Yes.
In Smithers?
It is under review, and I'm going to announce the definite decision in the very near future.
Tomorrow?
No, it's going to take a little bit more time, but not. I'm not speaking in terms of months or in terms of weeks. It's going to be a quick decision. Now, the reason why they were turned down, and mind you, I hesitate to speak publicly on each case, is there is an article in the law which says that the minister should not give a grant if he thinks that the project will be undertaken without a grant. And in this case, the grant was not granted, and the plant was actually built anyway. So the assessment of the officials, let's say prima facie, was well founded, but as I tell you, I'm going to review it.
You see, but this is the kind of thing you must act to correct, because the same kind of plant in Ontario got it. The same kind of plant in Quebec got it. But 30 jobs in British Columbia.
Let me tell you that this clause in the law of DRI, clause 7, hundreds and hundreds of applications in central Canada are rejected because of it. People start a project and then they make an application to the department. And as clause 7 says, the minister should not give a grant if in his opinion the project will be undertaken anyway. If they have already started making their expenditure, this is the best evidence, of course, that they don't need it. But again, I'm going to review it. And when this law of my department is going to be reviewed, because I've made a commitment to the House, I will come with a new law. That clause 7 will be taken away because it has been a trap a trap in several cases.
I mean, I agree with you that if people can make a go of it without federal grants, they shouldn't get the damn money, right?
And this is
But
why...
it always seems to be that it's the people in the West who can make it without the grants, except, of course, in the case of Trident, where the Conservative government, with Ron Huntington, very properly said, we're pouring no more money down this disastrous aircraft factory. No more. You made an election promise, your people did, right on this very program. You poured in more money, you've now got between $8 and $11 million in, and it is down the drain. How much has Dree lost on Trident?
Okay, Jack, I want to tell you something. You're a little bit unfair because it is so easy after the fact to say that we have made a good decision or a wrong decision. You should put yourself in the seats of the officials who have to predict the future. Now, today that you look to what happened to Trident or other firms, of course, it's very easy to look into it. But the great art, of course, is to put yourself at the moment where the decision was taken. If it had been a great success, you would have commended Dree.
Pierre, I've got you on this one. Huntington said, it's a disaster, no more public money. Along comes the election, and Pierre Trudeau sits here and says, we'll give money to Trident. Your people must have known it was going to go down the tube.
Well, let me tell you something. Of course, as a minister, I do not process myself all the thousands of applications.
Understood.
But, and this is something important, and I think I'm the only department, because of the discretionary nature of those grants, where I have the following obligation. Once a month, the Minister of Dree must table in the House the number of applications that were made to his department, the number of cases where the minister concurred with the recommendation of his officials, the number of cases where he rejected them, he modified them. Because the opposition asked for that when the law was passed, because they said there is too much discretion in that department and we want a monthly report how the minister administers that law. And mind you, I have seen PhD thesis done on the record of that department. In how many cases the decision we gave grants where it was not essential, we wasted taxpayers' money. In how many cases we gave grants which were too small, so the businessman did not undertake his project. But after the fact, it's easier.
Are you unhappy with these businessmen always looking for a government handout, even if they could make it on their own? Do you think the Canadian businessman, West and East, relies too much in saying, please give me Dree money?
There is no doubt in my mind that there is no country where the business community, starting with the banking system, which
so
are the wealthiest,
generously treated
are the most protected.
Largely by liberal governments.
Well, objectively, you're right.
After the break. I trust Pierre de Bane, Minister of Regional Economic Expansion, that you will not think I'm any kind of a bigot, merely because I'm now going to nag on about that very fancy highway exchange program you have with Quebec only, $238 million into that highway interchange into our most disastrous airport, Mirabel in Quebec. Was that not a clear case of trying to pander for votes in Quebec?
Well, I know that this is a widespread impression in Canada. That
Is
Quebec
it true or false?
It's false. It's false, believe me. I know it is widespread in Canada that if there is one province which is pampered, spoiled by Ottawa, it's Quebec. And I can tell you, and I'm absolutely certain of the figures because I have seen them, that contrary to what many people in Canada think, the amount spent by the federal government in that province, if we look to all the federal government institutions, agencies, is lower than what we spend on average in other provinces. But I know it is widespread in Canada because Quebecers since the early 20s have voted for the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party has been in power, so they have been spoiled.
And I'd be the first to
And let's take Mirabel. Mirabel, as you're right. You're right, Mirabel has not proved to be a success. But why is it that way? Why all the calculations of the officials at Transport Canada have proved wrong? It's because when that decision was taken in 1969, nobody could have predicted, and 4 years later, the cost of energy, of fuel will go up, and the travel industry will go down, and all the airline companies will
pull
see
back.
Exactly.
You mean OPEC in 1973, 74?
And Kissinger, I was reading his memoirs recently, he says, I don't remember once having read any document at the White House before the OPEC crisis in 1973, which predicted that one day from a buyer's market, it will turn to a seller's market. Said nobody has ever predicted that.
I don't like to deal in figures, but perhaps we can demonstrate again that the Eastern businessman is down on his knees at your trough more than the Western businessman. In Western forest management, 25 million to BC, 234 million to Quebec and Ontario for for forest management development. And in pulp and paper, 140 million to Quebec and Ontario and nothing to BC.
Jack, I think that it would be very, very unwise if we look to the problem from that point
From
of
the
view.
figures.
Yes, because, see, yesterday I met with the BC forest industry. I told them I want to be their partner.
Did they ask for money?
Of course, of course.
They're just as
But
bad as
you see,
Easterners.
you see, what I have learned after 12 years in politics is that this country is so huge. It's the second largest in the world. And because of its federal nature, people in each province tend to identify with their province. So what we should do in Ottawa is not devise a program which will apply to all of them. It wouldn't work. The problems of the forest industry in central Canada, where they were built at the end of the 19th century, does not resemble at all the modern industry in Western Canada. So we should tailor in Ottawa programs that adjust to the specific needs of each province. And at the end, instead of saying, how come that you have such a program applying only in New Brunswick or in Quebec or Manitoba, we should look to the overall picture. And the overall picture is that whatever the federal government does, the economic activity is moving west. Already, over 40% of investment in Canada now is done in the western provinces, which have about 28% of the population.
We've had a little backsliding recently, however, since Mr. Lalonde's energy policy and budget. But I want to get back to DRI, though, because
Yes,
normally
okay,
I talk to
okay,
people like
okay.
you about Constitution. Let's talk about DRI. I
And
remember
DRI
a
is
case.
the only department which is in a sense included in the constitutional bill before the House, because we have put in that constitutional bill before the House a clause which says the federal government makes an unconditional commitment to create equal opportunities for all Canadians. This is the first
And
time
I'm
that
suspicious of that. It means that you can do what you like with DRI money and channel it anywhere you want.
No,
Again,
it should not be through one department, because mine, after all, is quite small
Good question.
department. But all the federal government activities and all governments should be to create equal opportunities. All of them should recognize that
supposing, for
responsibility.
instance, I were a businessman, which I am not, right? And I've got a particular case in mind of some years back, but you can tell me if this is a correct method of operation. And I start a carpet factory in BC, right? And then I get my $5 million or whatever it was, probably 50, but 5, we'll say, grant. Can I, when I sell that plant and make it, I keep all the profit, I don't give back the money to DRI, do I?
You're right.
I can just rip it off.
You're right. And because actually the regulations are the following. When someone asks us for a grant to open up a plant, we give him a grant on the condition that for 3 years, he live up to his commitment to create so many jobs. After 3 years,
He's a free agent.
Is a free agent.
Now, do you specifically focus your target at so-called depressed areas?
Oh, yes, yes.
So we have no depressed areas in BC.
On the country,
Where?
all the northern part of this province. And I could tell you something. If I look to the poor people in BC or in Alberta, they're as poor as those in northern part of Ontario or in
That's why
Quebec.
you're going to review that for, with some consideration, the $900,000 grant for the Northwest Planer Board in Smithers,
Yes.
because they're watching this morning.
Yes.
They're anxious to know what your decision is.
Yes, but again, what I'm telling you is that that clause in the law has been a trap, and I'm going to change it in the
Good.
new law.
I can see why you're one of the two most popular liberals from the point of view of the opposition. You're as smooth as silk, Pierre de Bane. A little bit about the Constitution, a few telephone calls to Pierre de Bane after the break. Pierre de Bane, Minister of Regional Economic Expansion. The Constitution, unilateral patriation. How do you, as a good Quebecois, feel that we're going to the British House of Commons on bended knee to say, please pass laws for us? Do you feel badly about that?
Yes, yes, I feel badly, and let me tell you, we are doing it most reluctantly, because we have realized, and Trudeau has realized, and the cabinet has realized, that going through the ideal route, that is unanimous agreement of all the 11 governments in Canada. We have been trying to do it for 53 years. Trudeau has been trying in the last 12 years, and that ideal route of unanimous agreement is synonymous on the country of paralysis. Because every 6 months, one of the 11 players changes. We have elections, and every new player that comes around the table comes with his own conditions. And that route was really, its ultimate conclusion would be paralysis.
What do you think, after seeing that meeting with this man Christie in Edmonton and Carl Nicholl and all these outspoken people, what do you think is the strength of separatism in Western Canada?
Well, one thing, you know, I'm not knowledgeable enough about Western Canada, but what I can say, it is abundantly clear for me that there is a widespread alienation sentiment in Western Canada. And I wonder, why is it like that? People tell me because maybe Ottawa is too far away. But I tend to discard that argument, because in the States, the people on the West Coast do not feel that sentiment of alienation in regard to Washington District of Columbia. And here it's so widespread.
I can put it in one sentence for you, because the people in the West, the older timers in the West, were so poor for so long, and Ontario was always the fat cat, and now all of a sudden, who's backing Pierre Trudeau? Davis of Ontario. Who's worried about oil? Davis of Ontario. Who's worried about secondary industry? Davis of Ontario.
But believe me, we are absolutely concerned in Ottawa about that sentiment in Western Canada, that sentiment of alienation. That we are very, very much concerned about it.
I don't think there's any major separatism, although I think
no,
it will be
not separatism,
it will be
maybe
fanned by all kinds of money in the back rooms.
I pray God that you're right. But what I think we should be concerned about, that sentiment of frustration, of alienation in the West, that they are not treated fairly, etc., that we must be concerned with it.
I'm going to take phone calls to Pierre. Any phone calls for Pierre de Bane? Eh? I'd forgotten to put up the numbers, I think, because I'd like you to get a feeling from some of the callers here. Okay, any calls? Okay. Do you want to speak to Pierre de Bane? Hold on, you'll be the first call. So you're just double checking it. Make sure it wasn't some little old lady worried about something or other. Go ahead, please.
Oh, yes, I'd like to know, like I was watching the news last night, that they were interviewing one fella, and he was on his way to pick up the Globe and Mail.
Are you on the topic, or are you not on the topic?
Oh, I'm on the topic.
Well, get to the point, please.
Okay, I wanted to know why they interview people that were born in the East, what they think about Western alienation, and...
Well, why shouldn't they?
Well, why not ask some West...
All right, how do you feel about Western alienation? Where were you born?
I was born in Vancouver.
How do you feel about it?
Hmm?
How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm not 100% for it, but I do wonder what's going to happen about it. If we are going for it,
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. He wasn't exactly on the point. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to ask your friend there, how much money is spent on in the East, and how much money is spent in the West? I wanted some statistics.
Budget breakdown of DRE. That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, again, DRE represent about 1% of the expenditure of the federal government. If you look to all the federal money expenditure, either budgetary or tax expenditure, I would tell you this, that per capita, the federal government spends a lot more in Western Canada than in the Atlantic or in Quebec. Now, that is going to surprise you, but believe me, it is a fact. I have checked the figures.
You're talking about everything. Transfer
everything.
Payments,
Yes.
unemployment insurance,
Everything.
federal civil servants,
Yes,
salaries,
tax
the
expenditures,
lot.
those tax concessions that we give to oil and natural resources energy. But if I may put one point to you, I don't think that this is the way that we should look to the problem. Nobody in BC asked the provincial government here to spend in each region of the province an equal amount to the taxes collected in that region. What we ask the government is like a good father is to spend according to the needs of each region. And what we understand in Ottawa is that the West, in order to fulfill their aspirations, we must help them to industrialize, we must help the West to diversify their economy, and the federal government has powerful levers for that, and we are going to be your partners.
I hate to do this to you, but that's not what the woman asked you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was asking how much money do we spend per province.
She was asking you.
I want to be told where I can find the statistics that you are telling me about right now. I want to know where I can see them from my own eyes, if that's possible, as a citizen of Canada.
Believe me, it's absolutely true.
But is it possible to study it for yourself? See, what I thought she was asking, being a simple-minded soul, is that you keep talking about your 1%, let's say $600 million, right? How much is spent in the East and how much is spent, the Centre and the East, how much is spent in the West?
Okay.
How much?
Okay, I will tell you. My department spends about $80 per capita in the Atlantic provinces.
Right.
About $25 per capita in the province of Quebec.
Right.
And about $10 per capita in the other provinces.
That's not bad. That's a good answer. 80 in the Maritimes and the Atlantic, 25 in Quebec, 10 for the rest, including wealthy Ontario.
This is one department which spends about 1% of the budget.
Agreed.
If we look to all of them together again.
Thank you, ma'am. A good question. Hudson Hope, BC. Go ahead to Pierre de Bane.
Yes, I'm from the northeast part of the province, and we were told that you or one of your representatives would be in Prince George tomorrow night for a meeting with us. Now, I told last night that meeting's canceled and no explanation.
Are you making
a trip of about 250 miles for me just to get to Prince George.
Just a minute. Are you making an application for the grant?
Pardon?
Are you making an application?
No, he has a very good point.
I wanted to meet with the minister or one of his deputies, and he was going to meet with all the mayors and the people of the north in Prince George tomorrow night. Now, they've canceled that meeting with no explanation.
Yes, that's a good point. And through Senator Perrault, I've asked him if that meeting could be postponed to the first week of January. And I was told that request of mine was agreed upon, so I will be coming back to Prince George in the first days of 81, in about a month about.
Okay, are you on for the meeting then?
Yes.
Okay, you got the word from the minister. Phone Perrault's office and get the precise date, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your call. You're a businessman.
Yes, sir.
Are you looking for money from Dree?
No, I'm also a mayor.
Oh, you're the mayor of Hudson Hope.
Yes.
Glad to know you're watching.
And he understands the function of Dree to create equal opportunity not only in the south, but in the north.
What's your name, sir?
Tex McKeegan.
Oh, Tex, nice of you to call. Glad to see you occasionally watching old Webster.
We just got one of these illegal satellites, and we get you all the time now.
Great stuff. And you're not afraid of Francis Fox. Fox, the hell with him. And so,
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Keegan.
Thank you.
Everybody watches Webster in British Columbia.
Well, this is what I realized.
Go ahead from Williams Lake.
Yes, Monsieur de Bane, you state that one of the conditions of keeping a Dree grant is keeping the firm which received the grant in operation for 3 years. Now, I'm specifically thinking of a small firm in BC that received a Dree grant last year. It has been shut down more than been open. Presumably one of the conditions, too, of receiving a Dree grant is this Canadian taxpayer money is hopefully to be used to hire Canadians. This firm, it has been reported to both immigration and Dree, has in the past, although not now, hired illegal aliens on Dree money.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you'll give Gladys the details off the air, I'll pass it on to the minister and get an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on, please. Gladys, will you take 5525? Hold on, please, ma'am. Don't go away and don't hang up. No. I must let you go, Pierre de Bane. I realize now why they call you two things in the House of Commons. One, the winner of the Tony Curtis Lookalike Award, and one of the two most popular Liberal MPs among the opposition. Thank you, Pierre de Bane. And the people in Smithers can expect a decision on your review soon.
Very soon.
Already refused once, and a review very soon.
Very soon.
Because we need the 30 jobs in Smithers. And I have no investment in the firm, nor will I have.
That I know.
My thanks to Pierre de Bane. Next, Lord Parry of the Welsh Tourist Board. To my eternal shame, I have never, ever been in the country of Wales. The closest I got, said he to Lord Parry of the Welsh Tourist Board, was one time during the war. I was briefly stationed in Western-super-Mare, and I remember going to Tommy Farr's pub.
Oh, that's great. That gives you a foothold, and we'll alter that.
How far was I from Wales on that occasion?
Well, if the wind was in the right direction, you could have sped across the channel.
Now, Wales is a country which always, and you'll hate me for this, makes me think of miners, slag tips, A.J. Cronin, How Green Was My Valley, Welsh national terrorists, little bomb here and there in a non-harmful way. Put me right.
That's right. Well, you see, it's exactly the same thing that I get a view of Jack Webster or somebody that they keep in a cage. And I look around the walls and I see that you have bars around the studio, and then I find that you're a human, handsome and friendly man. And when you come to Wales, you'll find exactly the same thing happens there.
Yeah.
You'll find a land which had coal tips, which had a very heavy industry, which was scarred. There's a lovely book written about it, The Rape of the Fair Country. The other one, I think you probably know about How Green Was My Valley.
How Green, that was A.J. Cronin, wasn't it?
That was A.J. Cronin.
Scotch doctor who
My
wrote the
mother's
book.
doctor, in fact.
He was your mother's doctor?
Yeah.
I always think of him as Mr. Chips, which isn't quite right. He played the movie.
That's right, yes, he did.
Whoever Mr. Chips was. The name
Robert Donat or something.
Robert Donat. Donat, D-O-N-A-T.
Yeah.
But is tourism a big thing for Wales?
Oh, it's a very big thing. It's the second major industry, and compares actually with the figures for British Columbia, except that we have a much tinier geographical area, but in a sense a microcosm.
Population?
Population of Wales is 2.75 million.
2.25 million,
Yeah.
same as BC?
The same as BC.
Except you could put it almost in Stanley Park, by comparison.
That's right, and you're moving up in the scales of importance of tourism here in BC. We in Wales attract 13 million people into Wales. 12 million of those come from Great Britain, from Scotland even. You know, people who know what beauty is can appreciate beauty anywhere.
Yeah.
And then we have a million people from overseas.
Okay. How many golf courses?
We've got some of the best golf courses in the world. We've got one at St. Pierre in Chepstow, which has just hosted the Masters tournament. And we've had the best players in the world on the best course in the world in the best country in the world. You can't beat that.
Principal tourist attraction?
Well, apart from the chairman of the Wales Tourist Board, I would say that...
Tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm...
Are you a miner? No.
I'm a miner's son. Yeah. My father was a miner and he became a Baptist minister. And when I was looking at the debonair Mr. Debonair in conversation with you and admiring his good looks, I thought what a contrast there'd be in seeing the anthracite features of a miner's son on television here afterwards.
Anthracite features. So your father was a miner?
Yes, indeed. He cut coal as a young man.
And a minister?
Yes.
And you yourself know?
I was neither one of those things, but I now sit in the House of Lords.
So you're a Labour MP?
I was, yes, but I'm...
That was a good stab in the dark, wasn't it? Eh?
Yeah.
Well, you had to be a Labour MP being from Wales.
Well, the Welsh environment went through all that.
Are you in the tradition of an iron bev?
Yes, indeed.
Band.
An interesting thing.
An iron bev band?
Yes, you asked the question. I was the runner-up to Michael Foot for his seat when an iron died.
In other words, you contested the nomination with Michael Foot?
That's right. The present leader of the Labour Party.
He's a bit odd.
70 years of age, but very, very fit.
I mean, it's funny, we take Michael Foot at 70 years of age and we don't think of him as Senna. We look south of the border and think, my goodness gracious me, that man's a 69-year-old film actor. How dreadful.
Well, I think it's a year that's marginally better for 70-year-old men than for Baptists, don't you?
I suppose it is. Now, how long were you in the House of Commons?
Well, I fought 4 elections, and I did fairly badly out of democracy, and I found that the House of Lords is now on a short-term tenancy.
You think it will be?
I don't know. It's an interesting situation that you talked about the Constitution earlier. It's interesting that Canada's Constitution might be tested in a House that doesn't carry the confidence of the people in both sides of the channel.
I think it's quite crazy, but that's beside the point. What about the Constitution for Wales? When was Wales last a real independent principality?
Well, Prince Llewellyn is referred to as the last Prince of Wales in the 1200s.
1200s. The Prince of Wales is merely a technical term, I suppose.
Well, it's not such a technical term because the heir to the throne is the Prince of Wales.
I know, but the point of view, from a nationalistic point of view, is there any real fervour as there is in some parts of Scotland, although it never holds up against the Labour vote, for separation.
Well, the actual fact was that when the vote was taken on March the 1st 2 years ago, which is St. David's Day, 13% of the people only voted for separation.
That was a devolution.
For devolution, not for separation.
For a devolution.
Yes.
Was that the same time as they had the vote for Scotland?
That's right.
And they
on the same
day.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to ask Welsh people and other people to call you this morning, Lord
That's lovely.
Parry.
I'd love that. Yeah.
We don't want to get into heavy politics, although
Absolutely not.
I'd like to get your opinion of Michael Foot socially.
Socially?
Yeah.
Oh, certainly. He's one of the people who on this show would fight his corner with you and enjoy it immensely. But if you had him at home in the house, you'd find him one of the quietest, gentlest men in the world, and also one of the most informed on Dean Swift. He's a brilliant writer, not simply a political polemicist, but a beautiful writer.
Your friend Bevan, was he not the greatest debater, not excluding Churchill, the House of Commons ever saw?
I think so. I think that he holds that record, and it was admitted by both Lloyd George and Churchill, who were no slouches at the art, that he was as good as they were anyway.
Lloyd George was one of yours.
Lloyd George was one of ours, yeah.
Nye Bevan was one of yours.
That's right.
Who else? Big political names.
Well, Jim Callaghan sat and still sits for Cardiff East. George
He's not
Thomas
Welshman, is he?
No, but he comes fairly close as you came. He was from Portsmouth. And George Thomas, the Speaker of the House of Commons, is a triumphant Welshman.
We're going to talk about Wales and the Welsh Tourist Board and Lord Parry. Is that your real name? Or
That's right, oh yes.
Is it Lord Parry of something?
Lord Parry of Neyland.
Lord Parry. Parry of where?
Neyland.
How do you spell it?
It's Neyland.
What is that? Is that your castle?
Yes, that's where I have my ancient terraced house.
That's your home?
That's where I live, yes.
Neyland?
Yes.
So you're Lord Parry of Neyland?
That's right. And Neyland's on the Cleddau estuary, a great oil port. Plenty of room there for some of the trade that you're handling.
Oil port? You don't discourage growth?
We don't discourage growth. We have to try and hold it, though, within one of the most beautiful areas of National Park in the
How
whole
many
Great
mines
Britain.
still operating in Wales?
Very few. We're down to about 24, I think, although that's not my
Lots
subject.
of coal, but not mineable.
Interesting, though, that you should ask, because next year we've got a great experiment going forward. We're opening a coal mine as a tourist attraction, and the coal board will hand the miners over to us, and the miners won't go out of work. They'll show people how they cut coal.
Not at the face.
At the face.
Old-fashioned way?
No, well, not necessarily the old-fashioned way, but the whole of the history of it there.
I was only down a mine once as a kid reporter,
Dreadful,
and I was terrified.
Yes. I was absolutely astonished when I went, and I mean...
What's than going out in a fish boat?
Yeah.
Your calls to Lord Parry of Neyland. His old terrace castle. Where? Where is that, Cardiff?
On the Cleddau, and right out on the west coast.
Oh, it's right on the west coast.
Yeah.
It's nicer than you make it sound.
Your friend Richie Calder.
Oh, yes, science editor of Daily Express.
When Garter King of Arms, who was a very noble aristocratic gentleman, said, what do you want your geographic location to be? Because you've got to take this location. He said, I don't want one. Well, he said, you've got to have it. It's where you live. He said, okay, I'll be Richie Calder of Top Flat.
They didn't give him that, though,
No,
did
they didn't. No.
I could be Jack Webster of the South Side or something. However, I didn't serve my time in that business.
You know that Robin McClellan's got a knighthood now. It's Sir Robin. He sends his regards to you. You interviewed him here.
Do you think if I
Scottish
stayed, I
chairman.
might have got one?
Yeah. Come back. We'll give
My
you
brother got the... what was it my brother got?
OBE.
Did he
indeed?
Yeah.
Well, that's even better than, you see, they go to see the Queen, but if you're just made a lord, you just go in the front door and that's it.
Your calls to Lord Parry of Neyland after the break. Go ahead to Lord Parry.
Yes, hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Would you please give me the name of the town on the Isle of Anglesey, the one with the long name?
Oh, my goodness, yes. Llanfair Pwllgwyngoch Gogerwch yn Drobol Llantysilio Go. Did you get that all down? Shall I do it again?
Do it again.
Please, one more time.
Llanfair Pwllgwyngoch Gogerwch yn Drobol Llantysilio Go.
Thank you very much.
Are many people bilingual in Wales?
Yes, the official census figures would say as much as 20%.
School?
School, it's taught, officially it should be available to any child in any school in most of the counties of Wales.
That wants it?
Yeah.
I suppose it's a good thing. Go ahead, please. Hello, ma'am. What? Gladys, that's one I'm on. Hello? Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes.
I just... Hello, Jack?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Speak up, please.
Hello, are you there?
Yes.
I couldn't resist phoning you this morning
Why?
because, yeah, I come...
I'm sure you couldn't. I wish you had resisted. Because you left, you see, there's a 7-second delay.
Yeah.
And most of them are well enough trained
Yeah.
on political subjects to turn the television down and come straight at you.
Yeah.
And nothing drives me squiddlier quicker than people who are being drowned by the 7-second delay in their ear. I shall try. Gladys, shall I try one again?
Sounds fair.
Go ahead, ma'am. Now, begin and go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Lordship.
Good morning, my dear.
It is good to see a man, if you'll forgive me, of your years, who looks so scintillating.
Well, how lovely. How old do you think I am, love?
Well, I'm no good at that sort of thing, but I mean, obviously not a young man.
No, I'm an old 55. I've had a hard life.
You've had a hard life. Well, anyway, it's lovely to meet you.
I'm delighted to meet you. Have you been to Wales?
No, I haven't.
Great Britain?
Beyond the borders.
Oh, yes.
Been into Scotland, Jack's country.
Oh, how nice.
Lovely, lovely, yes.
Lovely, lovely on the west coast.
She has a delightfully happy voice.
Yes, indeed. I'm sure you
Are
look...
you only 55?
I'm only 55, yes. It comes of being brought up in the manse, I think.
Sir,
I suppose.
pleased me so much.
Thank you, dear. You're very kind. I hope to welcome you to Wales.
Thank you very much. From Victoria, BC, go ahead, please. From Victoria, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Lord Parry.
Yes, indeed.
Good to see you in Wales. Good to see you from Wales over in BC.
Well, I loved Victoria, and I'd love to welcome you to Wales and to Great Britain generally.
Yes. Are you over here, sir, on a tourism promotion?
Yes, indeed. I'm here in what is known as the Seminar of the Century.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to say that I'm glad to see you doing this because I've been over here for many years and I've been trying to get Wales to promote themselves over here.
Well, that's nice to know. Can we get in touch with you? I've got a lovely lady in the studio with me whose name is Corinne Sharp.
I'm a member of the Welsh Society here in Victoria.
Well, that doesn't put you off lovely ladies, does it?
It doesn't indeed, no.
Again, Corinne Sharp is the British Tourist Authority manager for the Western Canada.
Yes.
And if I say she's available, that means that she is professionally able to take your call and to follow up anything that we arrange amongst ourselves.
Well, Corinne is blushing modestly off the set.
Delighted to have your voice and your suggestion. You know, the serious thing is that there's going to be a developing trade. We've got 2 jumbo jets coming into Canada out of Cardiff Wales Airport next year, following a very successful campaign. British Airways, that's CP Air with JetSafe. British Airways is just starting a visiting friends and relatives campaign in the whole of Canada. So the opportunity for exchange will be tremendous, and we hope you'll come back and see us.
Isn't British Air starting a direct service from here in January?
Yes, it is. Yes, yes.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm glad
I
to
got
see
a
that.
chance to go on a British Air junket to a Rabbie Burns dinner in Glasgow on the 25th of January.
Well, can we put us in David's night on for you on the 26th in Cardiff?
Not if I go to the Rabbie Burns dinner in Glasgow on the 25th.
On the 27th. We'll move it 24 hours.
Oh, my goodness
Lord
gracious.
Parry?
Yes, indeed.
Are you going to be coming over to Victoria at all?
Not this time, sadly. I went, yes, I've been. I've been across, but I hope to come back. In fact, if there's a job there for my wife, she'd like to come to Victoria.
I don't think that lords and ladyships are eligible migrants to this country. Go ahead, please.
How I am really enjoying Lord Parry. I have a great-great-grandmother who was Welsh.
That's marvellous.
My mother was Scottish. I lived in London, and my father was Irish, so I'm the British Isles.
You have all the blessings
really
in this life.
enjoy listening.
She will now sing on command, Rule Britannia.
Did you hear the sorry, am I cutting you? Do you want to go on?
No, do carry on, old chap.
I thought the most beautiful comment came when they were making The Corn is Green. Incidentally, we talked about how green was my valley, and we gave it away to A.J. Cronin, when it belongs, in fact, to Richard Llewellyn. But when they were making The Corn is Green in Wales, that lovely lady Margaret Hepburn said, God made Scotland, then he made Ireland, then he made England, and he seems to have corrected his mistakes when he made Wales.
Very good. And A.J. Cronin, of course, was the author of my mistake of Hatter's Castle.
That's right, exactly.
Yes, yes. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Hello, dear.
Yes, good morning, Lord Parry.
Good morning.
I wondered if you're familiar with the area of Haverfordwest in
My
Pembrokeshire.
goodness, yes. My daughter lives at Nayland. My home is at Nayland.
Oh.
I taught school in Haverfordwest for 12 years.
I'm just wondering if you can tell me if the area has been desecrated from the beauty that was.
No, fear it hasn't. It's right in the middle of the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park.
Yes,
the castle
I was
there.
at HMS Harrier for 2 years in the Wrens.
Were you there? Did you enjoy your service there?
Oh, just wonderful. I could never get over the size of the seagulls, though. They were bigger than we were.
Yeah.
She's the oldest living surviving wren.
Yes,
I just
doesn't
wondered
stand
if
much chance
HMS
against a seagull.
Harrier is still around. I'm terribly out of touch.
Oh yes, you'd find a lot of it is, any alterations have probably enhanced it.
Tell me about bed and breakfast in Wales. How much?
Bed and breakfast you could get for as little as $7.50 in an exciting little farm in the country. The range would take you anywhere between £7 and £15 according to your preference.
Per head, bed and breakfast?
Yes.
That's the only way to stay in Britain nowadays, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly one of the more congenial
I mean, you
ways.
can't afford to pay 50 guineas a night for some place in London.
Well, if you go into the wrong door, you might find yourself paying more than that. But I think that the lesson has been learned. And I'm told by the travel managers here, and I've met a lot of them through Corinne's good offices, that there are a great many packages available through the agencies which are very much cheaper than that.
The only way to stay is bed and breakfast.
Well, yes, the bread and breakfast people would say that.
And it's very friendly, and
Yes.
it's much nicer.
Do
and
you get to meet people, and that's what
right.
travel is really about. isn't it?
Because if you go to a hotel in London, you never meet any Englishmen at all.
That's
Not that you're that keen to meet them, but nevertheless, we've got to.
Well, we meet them on the rugby field.
That's right, and we've got to put up with them,
Yes,
despite
that's
the
right.
defects and the deficiencies.
I'm sure there are some English
As I've
Canadians
said it-
now.
No, I've said it so many times. They're so secure that you can say what the hell you like about them, and they don't give a damn.
Now, what I find enchanting is that a Welshman can never put on an English accent, but a Scotsman can. Is it that you're basically more educated than we are?
Rather, old chap. Let's do a couple more minutes with Lord Parry. Oh, I'm getting a bit late.
That's okay. It's okay.
I'm all right?
Yeah.
After the break. I don't like that shot of me. It makes me too fat. Come on in a wee bit closer. Come on in a wee bit closer. That's right. Less of the table, less of the belly, and more of his chest. Now, put one up on his lordship. We'll see if we can improve his appearance. Lean
Shall we
forward a
sit up a
little.
little
Yeah,
bit?
lean forward a
How
little
about
bit.
that?
Yeah.
Show that I've got two arms.
It's that shirt. That's what
Is
it
it,
is.
is it throwing? Is it?
Terribly British.
Do you see these?
If you keep it long enough, it'll come back into style, that shirt.
Yeah. I'm wearing this until Wales beat New Zealand again.
You're wearing what?
This New Zealand fern.
Oh, is that a New Zealand fan?
Until Wales can beat New Zealand, I have to wear that.
Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
I'd like to direct a suggestion to Lord Parry there that the attraction that they're missing out on and are not exploiting enough is the three little steam railroads that run up from the coast inland, and the Vale of Rydal, the Festiniog is world-renowned, the Tallowin Railroad, complete with a lot of history. The little steam railroads have volunteers that give a lot of information. We never see any articles about them in the travel section of papers. It may sound insignificant, these little steam railroads, but it's a great attraction. Our Royal Hudson trip here is world-renowned now.
Hey, what do you make of that call?
We very seldom hear anything about them. I just by accident made a side trip for a whole week down the coast there. It was excellent. Hospitality was terrific. The towns themselves were terrific. Aberystwyth in particular, if I'm pronouncing it right, I can't spell it, was wonderful. And in all, it was just a delightful week.
I'll make arrangements.
Very seldom do I see any articles in the papers.
Lord Parry?
Yeah, I'll make arrangements with the Home Office in Britain to issue you a passport as an honorary Welshman.
Thank
Welsh
you. I'm
pronunciation.
R.B. Miller, model railroader, so of course I
Yeah.
have a vested interest in it, but I imagine there's hundreds of thousands of people that just love
Who
to
travel.
ride the little old steam railroads.
Yes, in fact,
Have a
these
lot of history
attractions.
connected with them.
I've just passed Jack a book which had on the back of it Winford Vaughan Thomas, who has done the classical film on the great little trains of Wales, and it may well be that your station here will want to carry that series because there is the interest worldwide. We do get a very great deal of coverage. If you're not getting enough here, then Corinne Sharp, whose name I keep throwing about, will arrange for the various editors to be updated again on the great little trains of Wales, but it's marvellous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For a Labour peer, you're certainly good with the commercial plugs. Go ahead, please.
Jack?
Yes, ma'am.
Bore da, Lord Parry.
Bore da, Bobine, mae'n braf nawr.
Should I hear you?
Diolch yn fawr I chi, a da iawn, da iawn.
Listen, I come from the Merthyr area. I've been out here 34 years.
Oh, that's
I want
marvellous.
to know how much money was collected for the Aberfan. Has the money been spent, and what was done with it to people's satisfaction?
The head of the chairman of the Aberfan Fund was Lord Elwyn Jones, who was out here in BC for the Gamanvagani recently.
I was there, yeah.
You met Lord Elwyn, did you?
I didn't, but I was at the Gamanvagani.
Yes, well, the distribution of the fund is still continuing. I can't, in fact, tell you the total. It was many millions of pounds.
Yes,
a very great deal of it subscribed from Canada. And all of the people have had initial payouts, and the thing is very carefully controlled. I think you can rest assured that the tragedy has, in fact, led to a very great deal of goodwill around the world.
Well, I know the Aberfan people were most unhappy about it originally.
Yes, I mean, who, having lost children as they did, the entire school wiped out, could ever be happy again about anything?
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, please, from Victoria. Hello.
Hello.
That's you.
Hello, good morning.
Gentlemen. Just a question for Lord Parry. It has been unsafe for people to buy country cottages in Wales for some time now because people have been going around burning them down.
Yes, they burned down 13 cottages. We don't know whether these are isolated incidents or a campaign. The people who burned down some that have been caught are in prison. It's dangerous to cross the road in Vancouver, far more dangerous than to rent a holiday cottage in Wales.
Thank you. Good point. Then I must let you go, Lord. No, I've have another minute yet, haven't I? Go ahead, please.
Yes, Jack. I'm of Welsh origin.
Lovely to talk to you.
Pardon me?
Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. You came from Cardiff. But what I was taught when I was a boy that the Welsh language was the first language of Great Britain. Is that true?
Well, my father told me it was the first language of heaven. It certainly
no,
is.
I was told by my father, who was the son of my grandfather.
It's the oldest existing language in Europe, and it has the oldest written literature.
Cymric?
Yes, Cymric.
Is that what you call it? Cymric? Ers?
Cymraeg. Yeah,
Cymraeg, Ers, and Gaelic.
Yes, yes. And I can say Gynairig and Borchat.
Gynairig and Borchat.
Which is, may the road come up and greet you in Gaelic.
And I be at your back.
That's right.
May the wind I be at your back.
Absolutely.
I forget it. That's Irish. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to Lord Parry.
Thank you very much.
Parry.
Delighted.
From Neelan. Hold your wheat for a minute.
Oh,
just
I'm sorry,
sit there
we're moving away.
It's not that you can't leave, it's just that you'll rip the microphone
I should
to
have known
pieces. We'll see you in a wee bed and breakfast in
book.
Wales one of these
Enjoy the
days,
book.
and thanks for the book. I'll take it home to make my valley a little greener. After the break, heavy subject. About a week ago, I went over to a house in North Vancouver to tackle quite straightforwardly and seriously the real problem of a family, the Bissell family in North Vancouver. And perhaps you saw the little piece at the beginning of the program about this delightful little boy who has got so many handicaps it would make you weep. And the mother raises a very important point. How much support is a family entitled to? And I'll explain a little bit more after the filmed interview with Marilyn Bissell and Darren. This is little Darren Bissell. Darren is 4.5 years old, and Darren suffered brain damage through to lack of oxygen at birth. And he's sitting in the arms of his mother, Marilyn Bissell. Marilyn, North Vancouver, not home. Marilyn, tell me, what is his condition and how much, if any, he'll ever improve?
Well, he probably won't improve developmentally much more than he is right now. His condition is brain damage due to anoxia, and he's severely mentally and physically handicapped.
Will he ever be able to talk?
Very unlikely.
Is he able to walk, or will he ever be able to walk?
No.
Can he see?
Partial shadows, possibly.
Should he be in an institution?
No.
Can you cope with him?
If we have adequate services, we can cope.
Do you have adequate services now?
Not right now.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Tell me what happened to him after he was born.
He had an operation on his duodenum, and he recovered, and that was excellent. Everything was fine. And then 5 weeks later, he was taken out of intensive care and put in another ward in the hospital, and that's where we feel he's contracted the pneumonia.
Something went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you felt so strongly about it at the time that you sued the hospital and the doctors.
That's right.
And silly question, did you win or lose?
We lost.
Now, just to let listeners identify with you, what did that cost you in terms of money? Apart from all the months and months of fighting and whatnot.
Yeah, approximately $12,000.
$12,000. Now, when you phoned me, you wanted to tell people about the lack of proper support services for people like yourself. How does it apply to you now? How can you cope with little Darren 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you and your husband, without any real respite?
Well, it's difficult, especially since we've got the other little guy, the 2-year-old. And as he gets more active and more demanding and we get drained of energy, it's draining to care for Darren on the weekends and the evenings.
Now, Sean is your 2-year-old,
Right.
Darren is your 4.5-year-old, and you've been fighting for some proper support. What kind of support do you think you should have?
Well, we should have some respite funding or equivalent to that can give us relief on weekends or a couple of evenings a week. There is a group home respite facility on the North Shore, but because of Darren's vulnerability to infection, we find we can't use outside services very often.
Now, it's a long while since I've done one of these stories, but in the good old days, your little Darren would probably have finished up in an institution.
Correct.
Now, should Darren be in an institution now?
Are you asking me as his mother?
Yes.
No, we feel the best place for Darren's development and for the family is for Darren to be in the home.
Now, you've been fighting the cause for proper support. What support have you had up to now?
Well, we've got these special services to children worker for the daytime. When he's well enough, he can go to a special program, a school, during the daytime. But for evening and weekend help, for the last 6 weeks, we've had no help. Before that, we did have some respite hours, but the fee to us as of October 1st was almost the cost of the service, and we just can't afford it.
What would happen now if Darren could go into a foster home? How much would it cost you to have him cared for?
$134 approximately a month. That's the foster rate.
And what support would the foster mother get? In other words, you would pay to the cost of foster care $134 a month, regardless of your income or your means test or your guidelines.
That would be the maximum cost. It might be less.
Now, is it a foster home that you could put him in for a period of time to give yourself total respite for a month or 2 months or
Not that I'm aware of. I've asked, and they've said there isn't any. These homes are very difficult to
Are there
find.
any group homes in which you can put little Darren for respite or a good long vacation from the incredible problem of looking after the wee baby?
Not a long vacation, maybe a week or two.
Now, I know it's a policy of the ministry that you should be given support in the home. Have you fought hard with the Ministry of Human Resources people on this?
Have I?
Tell
I have
me
a stack
some of
of
it.
letters, and I'm constantly writing the minister and the different people in the ministry.
Now, perhaps Leila could come and get the baby so you can be a little more comfortable. And tell me what perhaps Leland will take Darren.
Okay.
Now,
I gotta go.
how long a fight was it to get Leila from the Ministry of Human Resources to come and help you?
Well, many, many weeks and months of trying to even get an appointment to speak to one of the superintendents in the ministry, and finally we got this meeting, and at that meeting, very shortly after that, the services were intact.
So what do you get? What does Layla do for you?
She comes and she feeds Darren and she dresses him and she takes him to the school when he's well enough, which hasn't been that much lately.
And she works for the ministry as your support person 5 days a week?
Mm-hmm.
On how long a contract?
I think it's renewed every 3 months.
Every 3 months. Now, do you hope to be able to have Layla for some time in the future?
I'd like to think so.
Is she the first one you've had?
No, I had another girl before her.
And Layla is obviously very good and knows what she's
sure
doing with
is.
the baby. Now, what else can you do, though? What else would you expect, in all fairness, the ministry to do for you, apart from Layla coming in 5 days a week? And you don't have to tell me what a tough job you have looking after little Darren. What else should you have?
I think a regular, reliable respite plan.
Now, what about foster parents? If your little Darren was in a foster home, would the foster parents have a reliable respite plan?
Well, I believe they negotiate in their contract for respite funding, and where the child is not vulnerable to infection, I know they can use this respite home every so often, and if the child were as vulnerable as Darren, I would imagine that they wouldn't negotiate and get funding.
Doesn't seem quite fair. If they found a foster home for Darren and put it in the foster home, the foster parents would get full support, they'd get respite time off, they would have funding for this, that, and the next thing, plus everything else they need. But you as the mother can't get
That's
it
right.
without an incredible battle.
It's almost impossible. The natural parents are not terribly supported. It's only if you document your health and your psychological well-being and your marriage to the point that everything is crumbling, possibly you'll get granted something.
You were making a point to me earlier, too, that on your husband's income, and he's a teacher, if you want support, how much do you have to pay for it, apart from Layla?
Well, I haven't done a current means test, but I know that the last one was $252. But now that my husband's had an increment, every time he gets an increment, we have to pay more toward the
Would it not be
cost of the
possible to
service.
get someone through the Ministry of Human Resources to come and live in and be part of the family and give you proper respite instead of just daytimes?
I would love that, but you can't. You need, I think it's $350 to $400 minimum to pay a live-in.
How many families do you think are like this in North Vancouver alone?
Many.
Many.
10, 15, and probably many, many more in the province.
Might the strain not become so much on you at times that you say to yourself, look, I'm going to put Darren, much as I love him, into Woodlands?
No.
Yeah.
Not into Woodlands. Woodlands is not taking anyone anyways, but I can't put Darren in an institutional setting. His health is such that he would just go in nothing
flat at all. Well, I don't know how you keep your head up in this kind of thing. You're sure you're going to have Layla for some considerable time to come?
You're never sure, but I hope.
How have Human Resources treated you?
Well, I think that they've been holding off any kind of encouraging support. It's only when you scream and when you write letters, when you're the squeaky wheel, that you seem to get some kind of a Band-Aid. But I just don't think the natural parents are properly taken care of in a preventative way.
To prevent you from crumbling under the weight of a poor little soul like Darren, who really has no prognosis for any kind of normal life from here on in.
No.
Sad, isn't it?
Sure is.
You seem to keep quite cheery, though. Or are you just putting on a front for ads?
Well, it doesn't, no matter whether you're sad or whether you're happy, life still goes on, so you may as well make the best of it.
Here's somebody else that wants to be on television. What's your name? What's his name?
Sean.
How old is Sean?
2 and a bit.
Hello, Sean. Gonna shake hands? Gonna shake hands? How about we smile? Hey? Listen, something I forgot to ask you. We're talking about the foster parents, and one of the points you make is that a foster parent is much more generously treated than a natural parent. Am I right?
Correct.
Now, if I'm a foster parent, I get the support for the children, but I get paid a salary as well, don't I?
Oh, for sure.
In your case, is that natural parents should be treated at least as generously as foster parents. Away he goes again.
Well, I certainly would never want to be paid, but I think that as far as the support services and if I'm ill, if the foster parent's ill, they get a homemaker. If I'm ill, tough. If Layla's ill, like she was the other day, and I was ill, I just have to cope. I just have to round up neighbors or whoever I can get to come in.
Well, you're a special circumstance. Surely if your husband's at work and Layla's sick and you're sick, who looks after Darren?
That's just it.
Tough, isn't it?
At times it is.
I made a fair number of inquiries on this particular case, as high as the Deputy Minister, John Noble in Victoria. And Mrs. Bissell's point is well taken, that when a child is in total care of the state, in a foster home, if a suitable one could be found, the parents pay $134 a month, and the foster parent is covered for every single conceivable relief, respite, and need. In this particular case, I think we can give Mrs. Bissell the assurance that her 5-day support from Layla, in this particular case, will continue. Has to be recontracted every 3 months, and the formal application, because of the system, has to go through. Mrs. Bissell's point was that the homemaker service, which is available at 16 hours a week, should be part of the totally covered support from the special support services. John Noble tells me that that is not possible under the budgetary system, nor do they think it's essential and necessary under the budgetary system. What has been offered to Mrs. Bissell is 16 hours a week, and the relief is essential, believe you me, for which on a scaled down allowance guideline, one doesn't say means test anymore, would be given to Mrs. Bissell for $125.50 a month. That's not bad. It's, I suppose, the inconstancy of the arrangements which naturally worry Mrs. Bissell very much indeed, and getting the right people to do the right thing. The institutionalization, of course, is always finally possible, but who would want to do that to little Darren Bissell? So the question I leave you with is there enough support for the Marilyn Bissells and her husband of the world? The support seems not too bad, but you can well understand that because of this kind of a little bit of discrimination between the natural mother and the foster parent mother, Mrs. Bissell is not all that happy. She does an incredible job with Layla and her husband for the little boy. A very sad story indeed. But it's what I call one of these count your blessings programs. And when you think of your day-to-day troubles, count your blessings. And I wish Mrs. Bissell all the luck in the world. And I must say I found the human resources people concerned and interested. But of course they have rules and regulations they can't always bend that easily. I'll be back after the break. Yeah, I have a call here from Revelstoke, which is partly on the topic. Go ahead, please.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, I think it's a shame that children that age cannot get any financial aid from the government until they're 18 years old. And we went through that up until our boy was 18 years old. Drugs, $50, $60 a month. We never got no help or nothing until he was 18 years old when he went on a disability pension.
How old is he now?
Going to be 26.
Have you looked after him all these years?
Yes, in our home.
Is he totally handicapped?
100%.
What caused it?
Well, he had a brain hemorrhage when he was 3 years old, a little bit better.
What help do you get now from Human Resources?
Well, from Human Resources, he gets a handicap pension.
And then you get homemaker service?
I'm allowed 120 hours a month, but I only get about 60, or between 50 and 60.
He's totally unable to care for himself?
He can do nothing.
Yeah. Any other children and family?
Oh, well, I just have a married daughter.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think it's a shame that the government that these people, they've got to wait till they're 18 years old before they can get any help from the government.
You're making the point that there should be total support for the mother in these circumstances.
From the time they're born, if they're born like that or anything happens to them, they should have, because
Good,
it's
and
an awful drain on the family.
Thank you very much for your call. I'm going to leave that subject there for the moment. I've got a little item for which I have an introduction, which I have lost. It's about trees and a little thing out in Port Coquitlam, and Steve did it. And it's a... Let Steve tell you the story 4 seconds from now. I've lost the note.
Jack, the city of Port Coquitlam has discovered bargain basement sales. We're here at a nursery run by the Parks Board where 6,000 trees are being sold. They came here in the wake of the Habitat Conference a few years ago. These trees are going for $1 each. Some of them could go for as much as $300 at a normal nursery. But there's a catch. All of these people are supposed to be residents of Port Coquitlam. They weren't, of course, because a couple of thousand bargain hunters made it impossible for a handful of Parks Department supervisors to check identification. Besides, these trees are a small chunk of the more than 2 million trees the provincial government gave back to the people during the Habitat Conference. And the competition was fierce among those seeking a return on their tax investment.
You should have come down earlier. It was quite fun. They were stealing each other's trees.
Dennis, you've had an onslaught of people out here this morning.
Yes, we have. At 7 o'clock this morning, the traffic was lined up bumper to bumper in here and on the highway.
Are all these people from Port Coquitlam? I thought you had to be from Port Coquitlam to get a tree.
We assume they're from Port Coquitlam.
So you're not checking in?
We haven't time. Really, we have found that the people they say they're from Port Coquitlam. We take the word for it. The crowd has been such that we just haven't had time to check them.
Tell me about the crowd. Have there been a few scuffles out here in the mud?
A few, yeah. It's involvement of a few fisticuffs and a few arguments, hot and heavy, going on out here. But it's calmed down now.
You got it under control?
We hope so.
Going Saturday and today?
Saturday and today, yes.
So if I gave you $1, could I buy a tree? I'm from Vancouver.
You give the girl $1, you can buy a tree.
But I can, even though I'm from Vancouver, I can have a tree?
I didn't hear that.
Okay, thanks. So as it turns out, Jack, you could be just about from anywhere to buy a tree here in Port Coquitlam. The crowd was so large that anybody could get in or out with a tree. And to be fair, I talked to the mayor earlier and he told us that, well, the people of Port Coquitlam paid for the nursery, so therefore the tree should go to them first. But when you're giving trees away almost for nothing, it's pretty hard to control something like that.
Steve brought back 54 trees for me. $1 a piece. There's another sale next week. That one's over for the moment. And I shall be back after this commercial interruption. Tomorrow,
We have an instant car made of tea bags.
the Murchie Caper.
The Murchie Caper.
And this afternoon, hopefully, I'm going to do a walkabout at the BC Federation of Labour and present that to you tomorrow morning as well. That